Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Friday, the best day, right? A little dark out this morning. I don't know. What can we say about Friday here at Columbia College? Yes.
Yes.
Keep in mind, I think I mentioned yesterday, but keep in mind you have this coming Wednesday off as well. So teachers have a professional development day so that we can be more professional or whatever. And
It's just a lecture.
it depends. Usually,
Depends.
in the pre-COVID times, what we would do is we would organize something at the main campus, and we'd bring in, yeah, like a bunch of different speakers, and they would hold workshops, and then there'd be like someone in the field of maybe education giving a big talk at the beginning of the day, and maybe in the middle, and there, there'd be lunch, and it'd be a whole kind of thing. But we're not really doing that because of COVID, although I don't know why, because the building is full already anyway, so it doesn't seem to make a difference for us all to be there at once, but I don't know, whatever.
So it's going to be online?
It's going to be online. So yeah, there's a few things going on, but now it's kind of, yeah, it's more like online
But do you have to be here?
sessions. No, I can be at home,
Oh.
but I'm still working. But you don't care about that. All you have to worry about is that you get to sleep in and do what you want, and it'll be kind of a nice break in the week next week. Okie dokie. So let's get started here. So yesterday we finished watching our documentary on Adam Pearson, right? We kind of met him, and of course he explained to us what disableism was, and talked to us a little bit about himself and his life. He talked a lot about disability hate crimes and why they're underreported and why they are not prosecuted maybe to the extent they could be. And then he kind of went on, he participated in a psychological test, and then he kind of went on his little mission to change people's minds, right? So remind me really quickly, because this is the tricky part of this documentary, those three things about why people aren't convicted of disability hate crimes as often as maybe they should be.
They don't know why.
They don't know why? What do you mean?
Oh my god.
It's hard to prove hate crimes.
Okay.
Embarrassed.
A what?
Embarrassed. The police is embarrassed.
The police are embarrassed? Okay. So yeah, the police are embarrassed or feel that it's kind of, the polite thing to do is not to draw attention to people's disability. Morning, Crazio, which is true, right? We've been taught to do that. Of course, in this case, it's not a good approach, and the police need to kind of relearn that. But yeah, police are often polite, or they don't want to draw attention to people's disability, so it doesn't really go in the police report, right? When it gets to trial, Abitej was saying that it's difficult to prove hate crime. Why is that?
Because it's hard to find evidence.
For?
If it's planned out or not.
Yeah, right?
The reason,
Yeah, the reason. Hate crime is a crime that is committed for a certain purpose or for a certain reason, right? And again, sometimes that's easy to prove, but sometimes it's more tricky, right? And so again, if somebody just walks up in the street and punches Adam Pearson in the face, it's hard to know if it's a disability hate crime, right? I mean, maybe he was angry, maybe Adam did something to him. I mean, there's any number of reasons why he could have hit Adam. And so it's difficult to prove the why, easier to prove the what, right? Yes, he punched him in the face, and we'll punish him accordingly, right? So that's part of it. But what was the other part? I kind of added that part in, but what were they talking about in the documentary? Police don't put in their report that the person has a disability, and therefore
No evidence.
Had to do with the Crown prosecutor. Arena, do you remember? Okay.
Wait, the Crown prosecutor?
Yeah. So if the Crown well, let's go. Avitage said it's difficult to find evidence of intent, right? And if there's
But
not,
the Crown prosecutor cannot decide, I guess, whether it is a hate crime or not.
yeah, well, they can because they're the ones who decide what to charge the person with.
But the evidence weak. He did it.
Well, that's the thing, is that it's tough to prove the intent, right? And so if they don't feel that they can prove that this person did the crime because of hate, then they kind of step back and just do a regular crime, right? But also, if the police don't say anything about a disability, then the Crown prosecutor can't really, he doesn't charge with a hate crime, he just charges a regular crime, right? Because there's no evidence, right? And then, of course, there's a trial, and then the judge, when he goes to sentence the person, he can only really sentence them for what they're charged with, right? So he can't punish them. He can't punish them with a sentence for a hate crime because they're not charged with a hate crime, right? They're charged with just a regular crime. And so there's kind of, it's almost like a domino effect, right? One thing after another. If the police don't collect the right information, and actually this is probably true of the entire court system, if the police don't collect the right information, Crown prosecutor can't charge the person properly or can't prove that they did it, and therefore the judge can't punish them, right? Because the evidence isn't there. Good morning. The evidence isn't there, right? So there's this kind of three-part system that's kind of failing people with disabilities, not to mention the fact that the sentences for disability hate crimes are less than for other kinds of hate crimes, which doesn't really seem fair either, right? So even if all that stuff works, right, even if police do record, that there's a disability, and even if the prosecutor charges with a hate crime, and even if the judge is able to convict, the sentence is still less than if the crime was motivated by someone's gender or sexuality or race or religion, right? And again, you can think what you want, I guess. I don't think that's fair, right? So we saw him, let me see, what do I want to... Okay, let's talk about this. So Adam does that psychological test, right? And the test kind of shows that interaction with people with disabilities or with any minoritized group helps to combat prejudice, right? You kind of mix these people together in maybe a social setting or a non-competitive setting, and their levels of prejudice reduce, right? And the psychological test kind of shows that. And so as a result, what does Adam choose to do? What does he do? What's that? Yeah. Yeah, he goes to a class for stand-up comedy, and then he interacted with the people in the class, and then he books himself some stage time at a bar or a pub, right? And so he gets up there and tells some jokes. What do you think? Do you think he was funny?
Okay.
He was all right. Yeah. I think he was okay. It's hard to get up in front of people in any context, but particularly when you're trying to make them laugh, right? Because if they don't laugh, ooh, tough, right? Can you imagine? Your big joke, it's really funny, and you tell it, and it's just like nothing. It's like crickets. Oof, awful. I think that's probably like the worst. I think probably being a comic is probably the most difficult kind of public speaking. Like if you're giving a speech, you don't really expect anyone to react, right? You expect people to be quiet. If you're playing music, I mean, if it's loud enough, you can't hear anyone else anyway. So as long as the crowd doesn't leave, then it's probably okay, right? But like a comic, you like say something and then you're waiting for the audience to react, right? And if they don't, ooh, right? That's gotta be really tough, right? That's gotta be really tough. But pretty brave of him to do in any way, right? For any of us, I think it would be a brave thing to do to get up with your own material, your own jokes, and try to entertain the crowd for 15 minutes or so. I think that'd be quite a challenge. Do you? I think it'd be tough. I think it'd be tough. But he does it, and it seems people were laughing at him, right? Whether we think he was funny or not, the people there seem to think he was pretty funny. And so, quick question: how is this helpful for people with disabilities? What Adam is doing?
It helps other people socialize and learn more about them, and that the same person is just a bit different.
Right. Yeah, and this, it kind of reduces prejudice. Yeah, when we can learn about Adam and people like Adam, and just kind of get to know them as people, right? And so Adam's comedy certainly does that, and of course the documentary does as well, right? We kind of got to know him, and I think you would agree with this, but again, at first we kind of saw his face, and it was a bit of a shock, right? Because it's quite a face, right? But as you continue to watch, you kind of just you start to see him as just him, right? And you don't notice his face quite so much in the beginning. And again, I think we could probably agree that he's a pretty normal guy, right? Yeah. Nothing. I didn't think there was anything too strange about him, really, right? He was just kind of normal person, right? Like anyone else, right? This is kind of a tricky question, and maybe I didn't word it correctly, but I don't mean that he's not being helpful, but what I mean is, like, how is what he's doing, like, what other things need to be done? So yes, he's out there, yes, he's interacting with people, he's got a documentary here which is kind of introducing himself to people all around the world, really, but what else needs to be done?
In the law is unfair in a way.
Yeah, right. The laws are unfair, right? And so the minimum the sentences for disability hate crimes are less than others.
The religious one is 2
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, it's 2 years, right? So those things need to be kind of fixed, right? And again, nothing against Adam's comedy, but his comedy isn't going to solve that, right? That more needs to be done. What else needs to be done here for people with disabilities, would you say?
The police, I think,
The police? What about them?
they need to take it seriously.
Yeah, they need to take it seriously. I would probably say they need more training in this regard, right? Because they're clearly, they either don't know what to do, right? So Adam went in and said, hey, somebody posted hate speech on my YouTube page, and the police were like, oh, well, there's nothing we can do, sorry, right? And then when he talked to the law expert there, Dr. Mark, whatever his name was, he said, actually, no, the police were incorrect, right? There are laws that they could have pursued this under. Laws were actually broken, right? There was something they could do, but they thought they couldn't, or they didn't want to. But either way, right? Additional training for the police, right? Not to mention the fact that they felt they might feel it's not polite to ask about someone's disability, but in this context, they need to ask, right? Just like when you go to the doctor, right? The doctor asks you all kinds of personal questions that would be very rude from the average person, but you need to answer them, right? Because the doctor needs to know these things in that context, right? So police are the same. They need additional training, right? Additional training. Okay, let's switch gears just a little bit here, and I want to show you something different. Okay, so again, ableism is an unequal relationship in society, people with disabilities versus people who don't have them. How does ableism work? So I'm going to take us back to something we talked about a few days ago or maybe earlier this week, those external and internal dimensions of privilege, right? So I'll have you recall, of course, that we said the external dimensions of privilege were that the dominant group norms are integrated into the structure of society. Society is built in a way to privilege or to benefit the dominant group, right? So in our case, society is built for people like us, right? We are able-bodied, we are, our mental health is reasonably okay, at least I hope so. I know all of our mental health has taken a bit of a hit during COVID, but I think most of us are okay. So the world is kind of created for us, right? Also, the construction of what's normal and not normal is done by the dominant group, and of course the invisibility of privilege. So let's talk about these things with regard to disability, right? So we can see this kind of everywhere, right? So this is probably a very common scene for many of us, right? The Vancouver city bus. And, in some ways the bus has accessibility ideas built into it, but it is still constructed for the average able-bodied person, right? First of all, look at the size of the seats, right? All the seats are the same size, right? And they're not really that big, right? I think that, I'm just like a little too big for those seats, right? I've kind of got to squish in a little bit to fit in, right? But even then, I'm not the biggest guy around, right? There are people who have bigger frames than me, but also people who weigh a lot more than me, right? And so someone who weighs 300 pounds or something, they're going to have a lot more difficulty fitting into the seats that are there, right? Again, people with mobility challenges, again, they can get onto the bus, right? The bus kneels down and it's got a ramp so people can get in, but there's limited space for them, right? They can't sit or park their little scooters or wheelchairs. They can't park those anywhere on the bus, right? There's really only one spot on the bus for them, not a lot of room, right? Same thing with these. So we see these all around because they're part of sort of the civil building code, these curb cuts. But really they only became part of the building code in the 1990s here. So prior to 1990s, the curbs were all squared, right? So if you were in a wheelchair or if you had a walker, you can see it becomes very difficult to even just cross the street, right? How are you going to get down the curb? Well, maybe you have to go and find a driveway, or maybe you have to like roll along the street, but that's not safe either, right? So again, these are things that we don't even think about, right? We just kind of walk over and ignore them, right? Because again, our privilege is kind of invisible to us, right? Back to the seats, and if you think about people who kind of weigh more than the average, right? So people who are maybe 300 pounds, 350 pounds or so, those bus chairs are kind of too small for them, and again, they can sit on two of them, right? They could sit two and sort of fit, but the chairs we're sitting on here are also kind of built for the average normal quote-unquote person as well, right? Because chairs have a weight limit, right? Chairs like this probably have a weight limit of around 250 pounds or so, maybe a little bit more. So if you were 350 pounds, it might be dangerous to sit on a chair like this. It might be dangerous to sit on most chairs, because most chairs, again, are not weight rated for that much, right? And so you can imagine how difficult it might be, if you're carrying, over 100 pounds of extra weight, you might get tired, right? You might want to sit down, but then you find that, none of these chairs will support me, right? And in fact, it would be dangerous to sit in them, right? Yeah, can you imagine sitting in a chair and then it breaks out from underneath you? Humiliating, number one, right? But also dangerous, right? Chair falls out from underneath you. You could stick yourself with part of the chair. You could hit your head on the ground, depending on how it breaks, right? Really dangerous and humiliating and awful, right? And again, most of us don't think anything of it. We just sit on any chair we like, right? But for some people, you know, they have to search out a chair that will accommodate them, right? Yeah, let's look at this another part of external or structural dimensions of privilege. Here we have two faces, well, actually three, but I'm not part of this. There's two faces here, right? And on the left, of course, I'm sure we recognize our friend Adam Pearson. On the right, anybody recognize him? No? Maybe? He acted what? Oh, good morning. Yeah, his name is Steve Carell, right? So Steve Carell is a popular Hollywood actor, usually in comedies. Became very successful in The Office television show. He's Gru in the Despicable Me and the Minions movies. He's Gru, yeah. Among other things. So Steve's done a lot of movies and TV and things like that. He's kind of a big deal. But here are two faces, right? And most of us would probably look at these two faces and say that the face on the right is that's a normal face, right? Maybe even a handsome face. The face on the left, most of us would say that's not a normal face, right? And so what I kind of encourage you to do here is just to think about the dividing line between what's normal and what's not, right? Because we all have different faces, right? None of us looks identical. We all look different. I think that we would all look at each other and say, okay, these are all normal human faces, right? There's nothing strange about any of us really. But Adam's face, we would say, is kind of outside of the boundary of normal, right? We've kind of drawn a line around what's normal, and Adam is kind of outside of that. But there's kind of a lot similar about these two faces, right? They both have two eyes, right? They both have a mouth, they both have a nose and two ears. They're both wearing glasses, and their ears and noses seem to be holding up the glasses, which is kind of part of the function of the ears and the nose, I suppose. They're both kind of emoting, right? They're projecting their emotional state to the world, which is another thing that faces do, right? We broadcast our emotions to people, or at least the emotions we want them to see. We broadcast them through our face. So there's a lot about these faces that are really similar, right? They kind of all have the same parts. Those parts are kind of doing the same thing, right? And yet, we would probably, I think we would all classify Adam's face as outside the realm of normal. And so, you know, again, I'm kind of encouraging you to think about what's the line between normal and not normal? Where does a person's face stop being normal and start being not normal? Something else I want to say about this. I'm just trying to figure out how to say it. It came up in the documentary that some people were kind of uneasy around Adam, right? Particularly in the psychological study, right? When the people came downstairs, we saw that they all kind of stood a pretty far distance away from Adam, right? And probably a little further than would be normal. Even though he was a stranger to them, they'd never met him before, the distance was even still a little bit too far, right? They were really far back. And why do you think that? Why do you think that might be? Same thing about the bus, right? Why does nobody want to sit by him on the bus? Why do people stand further away from him? What's that?
Scared.
They're scared? Why are they scared?
Not normal.
It's
Not-
because he's not normal?
Yeah.
He's not a scary guy, I think we can admit, right? After we've kind of met him, we're like, oh, he's not scary. But so what do you think, Avtash?
They're just scared or like ashamed of something that
There's
disgusted or something.
there's some sort of fear or disgust or something.
Yeah.
Yeah?
They just don't like the way they certain people different.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think, Arena? Yeah, right. He's outside of the realm of normal, right? This is something different, right? And people are confused. Crazio, what do you think? Why are people kind of apprehensive about getting too close to Adam or sitting near him or anything? Why do they act kind of fearful? Right. Yeah, maybe a bit of those stereotypes we heard about when Adam was at the movies, right? Good people are beautiful and bad people are ugly, right? And so if he's got this very odd face, maybe he's a horrible person, right? As it turns out, not quite. But that's a stereotype that's kind of operating in the subconscious, right? David, what do you think? Any other reason you think?
I think they have a unfriendly looking.
He looks unfriendly?
Yeah, he look unfriendly.
Yeah, because of the stereotype.
Oh, because of the stereotype?
Yeah,
Of course.
yeah,
It has to be.
Right. Yeah, so we connect. We judge the book by its cover, right? We look at someone's face and they're like, oh, they're not attractive, therefore they must be a bad person. Adon, anything else that we should add? No? I think you're all very correct, right? Again, his face falls outside of what we think is normal. That kind of, causes us. This is a face that would cause you to look twice, right? You're like, oh, what did I just see? Right? You would look twice, right? And I think at the beginning of the documentary, his mom says that, right? Adam's mom says, yeah, I know people are going to look, right? Because people are going to see his face and they'll be like, okay, what am I looking at here, right? They will look twice. But so his face is kind of different, falls outside the realm of normal. There are these stereotypes in the background about, beautiful people are beautiful on the inside too, and people who are not that beautiful are not that beautiful on the inside. But there's also something else going on too, I think. And I said that, one of the jobs of our faces is to kind of interact with other people, right? And so and actually the mask thing we could talk about the mask thing here. But usually we use our faces to interact with each other, right? We look each other in the eyes, we say something to the person, and then we kind of watch their faces for their reaction, right? We see how, did what I said, was that funny? Did the other person laugh? Were they upset? Are they bored? Are they into me? Are they not into me, right? We're kind of looking for clues in their faces. And we do this with all humans, right? We use our faces to kind of signal emotional states to each other, right? But Adam's face is kind of different in this regard, right? Can we see his eyes?
Really hard.
Really hard, right? The skin and the tumors are kind of crowding out his eyes, so we can't really. It's really hard to look him in the eye, right? We can't really see his eyes. Not the same way we can see Steve Carell's eyes, right? What about his facial expression? does it really change that much?
No.
Not really, right? Because of all the tumors and things, his face is the way it is. It doesn't really emote the way ours does, right? Or the way a normal face does, right? So when we're talking to Adam, not only can we not see his eyes, but we can't actually see him emote, right? We can't see his facial reactions to what we say. And again, that probably throws people a little bit as well, because we're so used to interacting in this way, right? And all of a sudden when it's like talking to someone in a mask, right? In a literal mask. You can't see their eyes, you can't see their facial expressions, and it's a little weird, right? Because you have no idea what that person is feeling, right? You're getting nothing back from them. And so for Adam, it's very similar. I think he's smiling here, right? He's at some sort of awards, it looks like. I can't really read what kind of award it is. He's at some sort of awards ceremony. He's in his tuxedo, getting his picture taken by the paparazzi, right? Big night, exciting night. He's smiling, but it's kind of hard to tell if that's what that is, right? And so I think that's part of it too. There's the stereotype, there's the fact that his face is quite different, but also that we're used to interacting a certain way with our faces, and because of his disability, we can't do that, right? There's a source of information that we're shut off from, and that can be uncomfortable too, right? And it's okay if it is, right? Because again, we're used to interacting in a certain way, and we just can't quite interact with Adam in quite that same way, right? And so that throws people too. And again, I'm only saying it just to make us aware, right? That sometimes people may have trouble interacting with people with facial disfigurements for that reason. Okay. We also said that there are internal or attitudinal effects to privilege as well, right? And so some people in the dominant group feel that they have a right to their position of a right to their position of dominance or superiority. They may feel that, of course society is built for us because there's more of us, right? Or it would be really difficult and expensive to build a society that accommodated everyone, right? And maybe people feel that way. There's a lack of humility that results from limited knowledge of the minoritized group. I think we saw that with the woman who was talking to Dan in the wheelchair in the bar. And she was like, "Oh, can't you stand up? Do a wheelie. Where's your legs?" And it's like, she was clearly, didn't seem to understand his experience or didn't really want to, but that didn't really bother her, right? She was fine with the fact that she didn't really, understand him, and she was just, having a good time or whatever. I don't know. That whole interaction was bizarre. Yeah, so what I want to do, I've got a lot of slides here. Oh yeah, so remember from the story that we read about the two-eyed and three-eyed people. Remember the external and structural dimensions of privilege, right? The cool sunglasses only came in three-eyed versions, right? The cool sunglasses are only made for the dominant group, not the minoritized group. The theater program, right? The thing at the theater assumes that you have three eyes. And if you have two eyes, it's a little more complicated to read. It's not really made for you, right? She had to use a cane at the theater, even though, you don't need a cane if you have two eyes, right? You're fine, but she had to use one anyway. The doctor had a surgery, right? And they're like, "Come on, I can make you normal," right? And so you can see there both the idea of what's normal and not normal, right? The dominant group has decided that three eyes are normal, two eyes not normal, and there's actually a surgery to make people normal, right? To fix them. We also see that the two-eyed and three-eyed communities are separate, right? They're segregated from each other. There's lots of internal and attitudinal aspects of privilege in that story as well. The privileged group felt comfortable invading the space of minoritized persons, right? The saleswoman is like, "Oh, come here, dear. You know, those sunglasses aren't for you," and she kind of steered her away, right? The privileged group feels like they can represent the experiences of minoritized people, right? And so here, the play is acted out by a three-eyed person pretending to be a two-eyed person, right? And again, that's a little, there's more to talk about there. You could talk about the whitewashing in Hollywood and stuff like that, but members of the privileged group feel they're superior, right? And so the teenage girls were like, "Oh my God, what happened to you? Can you imagine being born like that?" Right? And again, the privileged group doesn't want to live with the minoritized group. Okay? They don't want any two-eyed people in their neighborhoods, apparently. So, with that in mind, I want to show you this short video, and the video is it's a TED Talk, and it's given by a young woman named Sinead Burke. Okay, so Sinead is going to talk about. Second here. Sinead is going to talk about her experience as a person with a disability, I guess. She's going to talk about her experience as a person with a disability. And what I would like you to do is, while we're listening to her, keep track or pay attention to the external and internal dimensions of privilege that come up. Okay? How is the world constructed for, or how is the world not constructed for people like her? How is the idea of what's normal and not normal affect her? How do people interact with her and treat her? How do they act, and how does she feel as a result? Okay? So there's the external and the internal, and Sinead will point out a number of things, okay? So I think it's just Anna at home, so the link is just in the live chat there, as you can probably see. And so we'll watch this video, and then we'll come back. Well, we'll have a break, and then we'll talk about it, okay? But let's watch the video first. So we'll see you, Anna, in just a few minutes. We'll watch this video, and then take a break. Okay, and we're back. So, short TED Talk by, sorry, short TED Talk. No pun intended there. By Sinead Burke. Sorry, I didn't mean, that's not funny. That's not funny. Sinead Burke's TED Talk. She talks a lot about external and structural elements of privilege. And Chen, stop it. This is serious. Serious business. And internal and attitudinal dimensions of privilege as well. What are some external or structural elements of privilege that she talks about? She names quite a few of them. David, what's one thing? Yeah, yeah. She was using a wheel, and why was she using a wheelchair at the airport? Does she need one?
No, because when she uses a wheelchair, she get more help from the people.
Well, not quite. Not quite. Why does she use a wheelchair?
This is her physical
Yeah,
Yeah, she's kind of she's small, right? And her, when she walks, her leg span isn't that great, right? So for us, your flight is always at the farthest gate, is it not? It's never the one. It's never like you come out of security and go right to your gate. Like I don't know whose flight ever leaves from there, but my flight always leaves from like
so far.
the last one, right? You've got to like walk 4 kilometers. But for her, that's a long way, right? Because again, her leg span, her stride isn't that great. And so, yeah, they push her around in a wheelchair, but that kind of feels a little weird for her because she doesn't need a wheelchair. She can walk just fine, right? But it's a long way, even for us, right? It's a long way to get to the gate. What else does she mention? Adon, what does she say? Yeah, washrooms are not designed for her. What's like one thing in the washroom that does not work for her? Yeah, so she can't reach the lock on the door, right? So what does she have to do, Arena?
She uses her phone.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of like, or yeah, or she asks someone to stand guard outside, right? Which is, I don't know, seems a little uncomfortable, right? Especially if it's a number 2. You're like, can you stand outside the door while I... Horrible, right? Just horrible. What's another kind of part of the physical world that doesn't work for her, Avtish?
The coffee shop.
Okay, what about it?
The servers don't see her,
Right?
and when they put her coffee too high up to meet her.
Right. So people can't see her at the coffee shop because they can't see her below the counter. And then yeah, when they give her her coffee, they put it up really high. And they do that at Tim Hortons just down the way, right? There's that little platform. She can't reach that, right? And even if it's on the regular counter, it's still really high for her, right? What else? What other Chen, give me another thing that doesn't work for her.
I think that's all.
No, there's more.
There's more?
Arena's got more. What do you got?
In the airport's carousel, she can take the luggage.
Yeah, she kind of struggles with her luggage, right? Getting it off the carousel. And then Cleo, what else did she mention? Difficult for her to take a seat? Oh, like a regular chair? Yeah, right. Regular chairs. If you're this tall, which she is, if you're this tall, and a chair height is about this tall, that means that it's almost half your height. So imagine yourself. Well, imagine me. I'm gonna stand up. Imagine me trying to sit in a chair that is this high. That's the seat that I've got to like get up onto, right? And as a lady, there's no graceful way to sit in a chair like that, right? She's got to climb up on it like she's a 4-year-old, right? That's not graceful. It's not cool, right? She doesn't want to do that. But again, chairs are high. Not to mention, if she's at the coffee shop, all those stools by the window. Those stools are as tall as she is. Can you imagine trying to get up on a stool that is as tall as you are? Dangerous, right? I wouldn't do it. No way. Trying to get on top of a 6-foot stool, it's not happening, right? So, what else is there? Cleo, is there more? There's more. What else?
Shoes and clothes.
Oh, yeah. Right? Just clothing in general, right? Nothing fits her, right? She can't go to Aritzia or, any of the fancy stores because they don't carry clothes in her size, right? She's the size of a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old, right? She's really small. And so there's no sophisticated clothing for her. She doesn't want to shop in the kids department, right? She's a sophisticated young woman, right? She wants to express herself as stylish and sophisticated and sexy, right? And cool. She doesn't want to wear Velcro sneakers, right? She doesn't want to wear kids' clothes with like Dora the Explorer. Like, she doesn't want that, right? But again, all those clothes are really too big for her, and it's just very difficult to get it, adjusted small enough, right? So shopping for clothes is it's kind of a struggle for all of us, I think, a little bit, but it's a real struggle for Sinead, right? It's clothes and shoes are just not made for her. What else? External things. So, yeah.
That she be taking photos and she will
She says that someone takes a photo of me on the street almost every single day. Right? Does that sound cool to you? No, I wouldn't really like it if random people were taking pictures of me simply because I look different somehow. That'd be awful, right? And yeah, she's like, I don't want those pictures to go viral, right? I don't want to become a meme, right? But she has to deal with that every day, and I think that's more of an internal one, David, although it's still valid here. That's more of an internal one because remember we said this during Adam's documentary that sometimes people in minoritized groups or people with disabilities in this case, the dominant group feels like they're public property, right? They don't have to follow regular social rules, right? Is it polite to just take pictures of people without their consent? No, right? Not in any way cool. Especially nowadays when, images can be uploaded to the internet or to Instagram and then they're out there, right? They're everywhere forever. You can never get rid of them, right? So to take someone's picture without their consent, super not cool, right? And the fact that it happens to her almost every day, and it happens to her because she's this tall, that's not great, right? And so I would say that, that's definitely an internal one, right? People feel like that's okay, right? People feel like they can take pictures of someone, because they're different, right? And yeah, not cool for regular people, definitely not cool to take pictures of Sinead, right? What else does she say? Internal or external?
She don't reach me or other things into it, so she uses hand sanitizer.
Yeah, she brings, and this is pre-COVID, of course, by the way, but yeah, she uses hand sanitizer all the time because the sink doesn't work, right? Or the sink, so, if you think of most bathrooms, the sink is about here, right? But she's like this tall. So the sink is like at that level, can't wash your hands, and even if you can get your hands in the sink, you can't get the taps or the soap, or you can't reach the thing to dry your hands. So the sink is totally non-functional for you, right? So she carries sanitizer, but she says some washrooms work for her, right? The accessible washrooms or the wheelchair or the handicap washrooms, whatever you want to call them, those work. But then what's the problem in there?
The toilet.
Toilet's too tall, right? The toilets in there are designed for people to transfer from their wheelchair onto the toilet and then back. So the toilet is like this high, but for her, that's most of her height, right? Can you imagine trying to get on a toilet that's this high? Yeah. How many of you think you would fall in? I'm pretty sure I would fall in, right? And it's a little bit funny to think about, but for her it's not funny, right? Because it's real. Can you imagine being at work, right? Big meeting coming up, got to do a big presentation, just going to go to the washroom really quickly, and then you fall in the toilet? Oh God, right? That's like someone's worst nightmare, right? That's what happens in their nightmares. They have to do a presentation at work and then they fall in the toilet before. But for Sinead, that's actually a real danger, because the world is not really designed for her, right? There's nothing wrong with her, right? She can use a toilet. She can walk around. Her hands work as ours do, right? She's completely able. It's just that everything in the world is too big for her. And so she struggles, right? Sometimes things are unsanitary. Sometimes things are dangerous. Sometimes things are just awkward. Sometimes they're humiliating. But she says design is inclusive, right? And that's part of the structural aspect of privilege. You can include or exclude people. You can discriminate or not discriminate just based on the way that you design the world, right? The way that you design physical objects, right? What do you think? Who has facial recognition on their phone? Yeah, me too. Although, with masks, it's kind of a pain in the butt. Do you think the facial recognition would work for Adam? Do you think the phone would recognize his face as a human face? Maybe, but if it didn't, how would that feel? Right? Facial recognition doesn't work because the phone doesn't think it's looking at a face. Oof, right? That doesn't feel good. Right? I have no idea if it would work on him. It might work. But if it didn't, wow, right? So yeah, we can discriminate, right? We can include or exclude people just by how we kind of build the world, right? Just by how we create it. What else? Anything else? External or internal? What does she say again? Oh, okay, so she said her arms don't straighten fully, right? Which is, I don't know. I guess that's a aspect of her condition. I don't know. Do you think that would cause her problems in any way? Just trying to think, if your arms didn't straighten all the way, would that be? Yeah, like I think like they kind of go like this. They don't lock all the way out, so that's kind of straight for her. She can't go like that. I don't know if that would make a difference, but it's part of her condition, right, as she is. Clothes, the bathroom, the airport, the coffee shop, the pictures. I think we have kind of covered it all. But that's a lot, right? And it's interesting to see that it's a lot for someone who, does she really have a disability? No, she can do anything that any of us can, right? Her body works basically in the same way ours does. Maybe she can't straighten her arms all the way, but that doesn't seem like a super big deal, right? She can see, she can hear. She doesn't have any sort of mental or developmental disabilities or brain injuries. she has all the same abilities that we do. The only difference is the world is not designed for her, right? And so because of that, she struggles, and struggles in ways that the rest of us take for granted, right? And again, that's the invisibility of privilege, right? We go to the airport, right? And yes, we go to the last gate in the airport and we grumble and we're like, oh God, why is it so far? But we can do it, right? We go to the coffee shop, we use the...
Get a ride.
What's that?
She get a ride.
She gets a ride, but she doesn't want a ride,
Yeah.
right? Or she doesn't want to have a ride, right? Yeah, we go to the coffee shop, we use the bathroom, whatever, and we don't think about any of this stuff, right? Because we don't have to. World is designed for the dominant group, it's designed for us, right? But it's not designed for her, and when it isn't, there's a lot of issues, right? What about Adam? I wonder if Adam struggles with sweaters and shirts that pull over, right? Because he's got kind of a big head, right? So does he like stretch out the necks of all his shirts, or I don't know, right? What about glasses? I wonder if glasses fit him properly, because things are not. What's that? Yeah, they're kind of not symmetrical, right? His face is not symmetrical. And again, all of our ears are just a little bit out, right? But his are kind of a little further out, and so glasses, hats. I don't know if Adam can wear hats, right? So no hats, maybe no glasses, maybe no cool sunglasses for Adam. That would be a shame,
No
right?
mask.
No what?
Mask.
Yeah, masks might be a different situation, right? With his ears kind of in different spots. I wonder how that's going for him. I'm gonna check. Let's see if he's on Instagram. Want to see? I'm gonna check. I'm sure he is. Sure he is. Adam Pearson. Is anyone else looking? Did you find him? There's probably a lot of Adam Pearsons out there, to be honest. No. I'd have to look for him. There's a lot. I don't see him. Does anyone see him?
Yeah, it's
What is he?
Adam_Pearson_TV. What's it?
Underscore what TV? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, there he is.
There you go.
There he is. He actually looks a little older. Oh, he's doing Wordle too. That better not be today's Wordle. Oh, thank God. Thought he told me what today's Wordle was. Yeah. Looks about the same.
What, baby
Oh, there's his mom too. Cool. Anyway, stop scanning Instagram now. Yeah, so lots and lots of ways in which people with disabilities can be challenged by both the external environment, right, and by people's behavior towards them, right? And in both of these cases, we could probably agree that neither of these people have too severe a disability, right? Adam, of course, has a face that's very distinctive and different, but other than that, he can get around like we do, right? Yeah, he can like he's able-bodied, right? He doesn't have any mental or developmental disabilities. Kind of a normal guy, with the exception of his face, and he doesn't see very well, but that's about it, right? And Sinead, the same thing, right? She's able-bodied and no mental or developmental disabilities. She's just living in a world that's not designed for people like her, right? And so you can imagine, if these people have all these challenges, imagine people who have more significant disabilities, right? How many challenges they're going to have. Because we've come up with a long list, and these people aren't, significantly disabled, right? They're more or less like you and I. So again, you can see that this is an issue, right? And it's one that, again, when we talk about equality and social justice, it's one that we often forget about, right? We think about race, we think about sexism, sometimes we think about religion or sexuality, but we don't think about disability. And there are a lot of people out there with disabilities who are, kind of invisible to society, right? People don't really, unless you have someone in your family who has a disability and you have to sort of, help to care for them or think about them, we often don't think about people with disabilities very much, right? They're kind of in this charge towards equality or social justice or being woke or whatever you want to call it. People with disabilities get left behind, right? We don't really think about them, but we should. Okay, people, are we all good? Any questions you want to ask? Things you want to say? I'd like to do a quiz next week, and so we have Wednesday we have off. So would you prefer to do the quiz on Tuesday? It's a bit short notice. Or do you want to do it Thursday, or do you want to do it Friday?
Thursday.
Thursday? So we'll come back from the day off and do it then? Okay, I can do that. Okay, Thursday it is. I'll post it on Microsoft Teams and I'll figure out the classes that are covered by the quiz, and we'll do that, okay? Thursday it is. Okay.
What class is that?
What's that?
What class is it?
This is 18.
18.
Yeah.
18?
18.
So we're supposed to reach 20.
It'll probably be like 10. It'll probably be like 10 to 18 or something like that. Yeah, I'll decide and I'll put it up there to confirm, but it'll probably be like that. Everybody good?
I didn't think that's the difference between external and internal.
Okay. So the difference between them is external has to do with kind of the outside world. So the way physical objects are created or designed, but also kind of the way in which we think about what's normal and what's not, right? And so, this is a normal sized chair, is it not? It is, but not for Sinead, right? For Sinead, that's a huge chair, right? And so Adam's face, right? It's not normal because the dominant group has said that normal faces don't look like that, right? They look smaller or more symmetrical or whatever, right? And so the dominant group gets to say what's normal, and they also get to design the physical environment in a way that benefits them. Internal and attitudinal has to do with the way people feel and their attitudes, the way that they act. And so, yeah, people taking pictures of Sinead, people not wanting to sit near Adam, coming up to a guy in a wheelchair and telling him to do a wheelie, right? That's all internal or attitudinal. What's that?
I think she's wrong.
Probably a little bit.
It's so unpleasant.
Probably. Either way, kind of jerky thing to say. Okay. Any other questions? Is that good, Arena? That's good. You're welcome. All good? Right. That is it. You can pack it up. I'll see you on Monday. Some of you I'll see in 20 minutes or so. But if I don't see you, have a good weekend. Relax, sleep, eat, then sleep again, then eat again, etc.